in this shape here, if you can find it in the workbook, it's the baseball diamond. And this I got from a guy named Robert Middleton. And in your bonuses, there's an expanded explanation of this. But I'll give you the down and dirty of it. So it's interesting, this idea of becoming a hub, of getting people to come to you. That's good. And there's still a question of, like, how does that relationship evolve? So here's another way of looking at it. So marketing is like baseball. Again, it's like baseball in a few ways. One, it's not just enough to have the cool baseball equipment. You know, as a holistic practitioner, you can have your cool business card and flyers and posters and logo and all that. You can have all the swag of marketing and still not actually be doing a great job marketing. So it's not just enough to have the equipment to be playing baseball. You actually have to know the structure and the rules of the game. And there really is an order. You really have to run these bases, and you can't just, you know, skip bases and just run home all the time. And it's also, I think, good because a lot of people in marketing, I think this is kind of the fantasy that we have. I think there are two fantasies most entrepreneurs have, or practitioners especially too. You know, that you'll go to a party. First fantasy, somebody like meets you and like, what do you do? You explain, they're like, oh my God, this is crazy. It's like, I've worked in sales and marketing my whole life, and I'm just so tired of selling for the man. And I was like, I just want to meet somebody who does good work that I can just market for. Like, you know what? You just do the work with the people that you love. I'm just going to send you business. I'm just like, dream on. Let that one go. And the second one is that you meet somebody and it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe you do that. I was just at the office talking about how we need to hire somebody who does exactly what you do. And then I meet you. This is a crazy synchronicity. Can you come by the office tomorrow to like sign a contract with $200,000 a year, possibly be enough to start you off? You know, there's that hope and that fantasy, but people can get trapped on hopium. So let it go. So there's a syntax, there's an order. And I think the baseball metaphor is also useful because sometimes home runs happen. As you get really good at marketing, you hit more home runs. But let's remember that Babe Ruth, the whammer, one of like the best baseball players ever, hit home runs maybe what, like 30% of the time? I think he like struck out 70% of the time. This was one of the greats. Like, so when we think about trying to hit home runs of like you're going to meet somebody at a thing and they're just going to hire you, it usually doesn't work like that. There's usually a process to it. I'm not going to use brown. No. Green. I want green. Yes. Okay. So at first, you're, oh shoot. At this side of home base, you're a stranger. You know. Marketing is a bit like Cheers, but nobody knows your name and nobody's glad you came. So it's exactly the opposite of Cheers. The first base is clarity. This is where they're just clear about what you do. This is what we spent the whole morning on, and a bit of the afternoon, being able to clearly articulate what you do in a way that they get it. So that doesn't mean they're sold. That doesn't mean they want it, you know, what you're offering. It just means that they're like, I get it. And if they're clear, that means they could probably express it to their friends too. They could introduce you and say, oh, this is what my person I just met does. It's clear. That's base number one. Base number two, second base, trust. This is where there's a level of trust. They trust your character. You know, this is a good person. They trust your competence. This person could probably do the job they say. Doesn't mean they're going to work with you. Doesn't mean they're sold. But there's a general like credibility that's been established. Third base. There's a general agreement. And that's where they're kind of like, you probably have people in your life like this where they're like, I want to work with you. Why don't I hire you? I should totally be working with you. I want to come to one of your events sometime. That's the level. They haven't paid you anything. They're always talking you up, but they haven't actually come. And then home base is where they actually pay the money, sign, whatever. They actually do something about it. Okay, so the four bases. So you're a stranger, they're clear, there's trust, there's a general agreement, and they sign. What is interesting to me about this model is imagine the impact of trying to skip any of these bases. What would happen, I don't know if you're still on the frame, if you try to skip first base. Consider that you're a stranger, and you try to just jump to them trusting you without them having any idea what the hell you do. Do you see how tricky that is? It's like, trust what? You know? Imagine trying to jump to the general agreement with no trust. Yeah? It's like, that's trouble. This is most business networking events. Hey, cool, I like what you do. We should work together sometime. Totally, you know, and it's like, trying to skip the general agreement, that phase where, you know, just from like there's a general trust to like, that can feel violating. It's like, yes, I trust you, and then work with me, push. So you can't skip any of these bases. You have to go through the steps. What do you think is the longest run of those?
Clarity.
Trust, I would say. Clarity ideally is pretty quick. It's long for us to figure it out. But in terms of once the process starts talking with somebody, it's this journey of trust. And we need to figure out in marketing, how do we do this? And knowing that it's probably not going to just happen in one conversation. Sometimes it does, and that's great. You know, because you were introduced by somebody, or they're already familiar with Byron Katie's work, you know, and the kind of modality you use. So they're just like, oh, I'm sold, you know. But it often takes a little bit longer. And there are often multiple touch points that are going to happen. And there's this notion of stay in touch marketing. Stay in touch marketing, which I got from Robert Middleton as an idea. And here's an interesting fact about, I actually learned about Calgary. So so in Calgary, people tend to refinance their homes every 5 years. What percentage of people do you think refinance with the original mortgage broker? What percent would you guess? What? 2%. 2%? Yeah, wow, that's exactly right. Did you already know that? That's a good guess. That is what it is. It's 2%. That's low, yeah? That means that 98% of the people just go to some other mortgage broker. Why is that so low, do you think?
There's no relationship established.
There's no relationship, yeah?
They don't keep in touch.
They don't keep in touch. Imagine, though, if your mortgage broker sent you, like, every quarter sent you some nice little gift. Like, hey, I'm on a board of a local theater, and we have a show opening, and I wanted to invite you to the opening. Free tickets. Or, hey, there's this little cafe down the street. I don't know if you've checked it out, but I got you a free dessert there or something. Or a free dinner somewhere, whatever. And then around the 4th year, they gave you a phone call. It's like, hey, I just wanted to see, you know, a lot of people around this time start thinking about refinancing their home. I just wanted to see if you're thinking about that. And I'm not calling to like pitch you on anything, but I'm just curious where you're at in the process. Yeah, you know, we have been thinking about that. It would free up some money. It's like, cool. You know, I actually think this is a terrible time to refinance because of things that are happening in the market. But there are some other things you could do. And if you'd like, we could meet and we can talk about it. There's no pressure, you know, there's no pitch. But just, you know, if it's helpful. Well, you know, that would actually be great. Or I've got a workshop coming up where I'm going to present about this. And there's, you know, it's a free ticket if you want to come. So staying in touch. There's a company in Calgary called Urban Mortgage. And their best clients, I don't know if they're still doing it, but every 2 months a while ago, their best clients would get a box of a dozen Crave cupcakes delivered by courier to their office. So you picture like Frank's sitting there working. Courier comes in with this swank-looking box to Frank. Frank never gets anything. And you see the courier come in, the courier leaves, and people are, hey, Frank, what did you get? So, cupcakes. Somebody sent you cupcakes by courier? It's my mortgage company. They sent me, I don't know why. They sent me cupcakes. Your mortgage company sends you cupcakes. Do you want a cupcake? You gonna bitch up? You know, like. And it's nice. They stay in touch. That builds, and then people after a while like, I want a card for your mortgage. I want cupcakes. You know? So staying in touch. What are ways that you could stay? So those are some examples. You can send gifts. What are other ways that you can be staying in touch with clients? Yeah, Facebook. Great. So yeah, I would say so social media, Facebook, Twitter. I do a whole workshop on Facebook. And to me, like, yeah, staying in touch is a key thing. So social media, what else? Newsletters. Yeah, newsletters. What else?
Physical gifts, like you said.
Yeah, gifts. The gifts actually don't even have to be that expensive. Like, there's a woman, a practitioner in Toronto, and she went to Ireland and she went to the sacred well and she got a bunch of water from it and somehow got it back into Canada. And she sent her clients like little vials of this water from this sacred well. It's nice. It's like, and it was really thought out who she gave it to. And what else?
I think you guys have done opportunities to get together, other people that don't actually cost you anything, there's nothing selling going on, it's just opportunities to connect.
This, and which ties back to being a hub. As a hub, hosting parties, gatherings, free gatherings, parties, don't underestimate the power of a good party to build your business. Throw a party and invite key hubs to it. Invite your favorite clients, invite key hubs, give it a cool name. Don't underestimate that. If you do Reiki, maybe it's a Japanese themed party. If you're a nutritionist, there's a nutritionist in Toronto who had his philosophy, his point of view, when we got to this part, like, my take on the situation is, he's like, my take on the whole health situation is if you do the right thing 80% of the time, you can do the wrong thing 20% of the time, and you're fine. It's like, so he wanted to host a party where it's like all the 20%, like all the bad. But he's like, if you're gonna eat ice cream, this is the ice cream that you eat. Like, this is it's not the healthiest, but it's the best, and like, if you're gonna eat chocolate, this is the best. And I was like, yeah, it's like, you should call it the 20% party, That's a cool party. And he could invite his favorite clients, invite them to invite their friends, possibly, depending how big he wants it to be, but also invite other hubs, other holistic practitioners, other folks in town who would just love the idea of this, like ice cream, wine, beer, chocolate, but the best stuff. Pastries. There was there was an art therapist, and she was going to do, she called it the Party Arty, and it was going to be in her home, and there'd be a little art station set up all around her home. So it'd be like, you could draw here, you can paint here, Lego here, Play-Doh here, and the party would be like, create art throughout the night. Here's a wall you can paint on. Super smart. My favorite one, though, was, at the weekend, we spent a bunch of time talking about like what kind of parties, but my favorite one was this. We're going around, it's like, and it's good if the party is themed along what you do, that it makes sense in some way. And there's a woman, it was like, Japanese themed party for Reiki, great, arty party, cool, 20% party, awesome, colon hydrotherapist, oh my God. And we were just like, and she was so excited. I was like, what's your idea? And she was like, the retox. And I was like, the retox? She's like, yeah. I was like a boozer? She was like, yeah. She's like, I spend all year detoxing people. Like, why not have a retox party? I was like, that's cool. You should have like a bucket of gummy worms so people can actually eat parasites. And, that's cool. That's a cool party. So the point is, don't underestimate parties as a chance to, because there are people who are hubs who will never come to your events, period. They're busy. They don't need it. They're never going to see you one-on-one, but they will come to a party that you host, especially if you invite them exclusively. Parties are my new favorite thing. Any other ways you can think of for staying in touch? A blog can be a way of staying in touch. Yeah, totally. Sure. Actually staying in touch. What a concept. I just saw this AT&T commercial and it made me cry. I had to reach out and touch them. So you get the idea. Staying in touch, building a relationship over time, and ideally where a lot of these things you're not pitching them. Something to consider that I got from Robert Middleton is this idea of the 80-20 rule. Meaning that 80% of your being in touch should not be a pitch, should not be a promotion, at least for your own stuff. It should just be relevant, valuable content, useful information for them. But useful information for who? It depends on who you're trying to reach. This is why, there was a woman in Edmonton who did, we'll get to this. It depends who you're trying to reach and what it's about in terms of what you stay in touch with. Yeah. Information that's relevant to one group, irrelevant to another group. So just trying to send out a newsletter about Reiki, or a newsletter about massage is lame. Unless they're super passionate about that modality, it's more interesting to send out stuff that's going to be relevant to them, that's going to add value to them. Again, what's valuable depends on who you're trying to reach. But it could be things you could send it like stories, It could be like a case study of a client, how they worked with it. That could be good. It could be a listing of events, cool things that are happening in the scene that you're working with.